And hello again, we are on Soul to Soul interviews, and I have got a beautiful soul with me today, Gail Evans, who I have known in the background of my detox life and my raw food life and everything to do with food life. So Gail has sort of come through in that respect. And I now know that she's working with soul the same as I am, and I do believe that that has been a massive door opener for both of us. Gail, please introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are.
Hello, thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that. I'm Gail Evans and I work as a soul alignment coach. I run a 12-week soul alignment course where I help you to really align with your true soul voice and connect with your inner child. So the foundation of my work is that. But I also run a soul-led business school, and I'm in the middle of a masculine and feminine course called Return to Wholeness. So as you can tell already, there's lots of soul and, you know, coming back to the center and all of that.
I don't ever think it's from one aspect, is it? It is, we do this as now that we know that we are soul and we've accepted it and we're like, okay, that's what we're here for. You know, it comes through everything that we do, you know, raising children. And we were laughing before saying, you know, we do know that we're soul and we are in a, you know, human experience, but we still have to do the laundry. So we can't be flying up there making everything, you know, everything's perfect, everything's just right, just as it is. I'll wait for everything to land. You know, we're still doing the laundry, going shopping, dealing with teenage tantrums, schoolwork, homework, our own inner work.
That's the thing. I think what you were highlighting earlier, well, you know, I was having a bit of a, let's say, a human tantrum in the sense of things were going wrong before we started the call. But I think one of the things that I see, particularly from my clients, is when you're working from a soul-led place, they sometimes think you have it all together, or that you're just continually there and available to be this kind of, you know, soul-led giving person. And we are, but we're also we're also human. And I said to one of my clients the other day, she went, "Oh, did you see my message?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did, but I had to go and get my shopping. I had to make dinner. I had to sort out." And she was like, "Oh," she just went like dead silent, because it's easy to look at people who are doing things like us and think, "Oh, wow, they're always on point." And that's not how it is. We're here having a human experience. I actually believe that we're here for the human. I don't really believe that we're here for the soul. If you think about the soul itself, the soul is as it is, it's doing its thing, right? But we came here and we're generated for the human to learn and grow and evolve and come out, even though we're in a really heavy, dark moment, I believe at this time, to come out of shadow, to become more conscious. Now, where that ends up, I don't fully know, but that's what I believe.
I mean, I've been channeled this information that really is based on that point, in the fact that we are here to evolve just the human population so that we are more conscious beings. You all know, having a daughter, and I know, having sons, they're already conscious. I mean, we're already conscious. We're already extremely empathic, sensitive to what's going on. We just haven't really internalized it to kind of go, what am I feeling? What is that? You know, how can I make sense of that? How can you just let the energy flow in and flow out without kind of grabbing hold of it and, you know, trying to really mentally make sense of everything, rather than just sort of say, well, that's it. And also, you'll probably notice that the books that we read to do with being soul and spiritual, they were heavy going. And I just, you know, you and I want to make this everyday stuff, you know. Yes, we are spiritual beings. We are already in flow. How do we deal with that when you've got kids and you've got shopping and you've got money to make and you've got bills to pay? This is just being human.
Well, for me, like, the interesting thing about what you're saying is, when you ask that question, inside of me, and I don't know whether you experience it in exactly the same way or in a similar way, but for me, there is this kind of space where I can feel it really, like, I mean, this is why I called my course Align, because it feels like an alignment where I can feel myself right in the middle. And when I go to that point, I can sense everything kind of on a bigger level. It's more like I feel bigger than just my body. And
Yeah,
from
you
that
are the little one. You know, I write a journal to myself. I have an earthly journal and I have a spiritual journal. It's just a very short page. And I write to myself like self from spirit to say, dear little one, hello little one, how are you doing today? You've done a brilliant job doing, and it's like what falls out on the page, you kind of go, oh wow, I get that. And then the earthly journal is more, what can't I cope with? What do I intend? What do I have to hand over? Because I can't deal with all of that being a human. But you're so right about that lining up. And I see that often. You're standing in the middle of a doorway. So you've got that reality and you've got that reality. And, you know, you're trying to deal with both. Or you're hanging out under the rainbow in the hammock and you're kind of like in neutral space. And you get the whole big picture of it. It's like, well, what I'm feeling is not me. It's to do with the building I'm in, or the people I'm with, or the cosmic energy, or Monday morning feeling, or the weather's, you know.
Yeah. The key word you said was space. I talked to someone about this yesterday and they didn't really understand what I was saying. They were like, what do you mean I need to take space if I'm triggered? Or, you know, I take space from the conversation or the situation. I was like, no, what I mean is, if you can find that space in you, which is why, for example, you know, meditation has become one of the top things, you know, in yoga and all of that across the last 10 years. Before that, it was hippie woo kind of weird, you know, but it's much more accepted now. And
it's so much more streamlined now. Everybody seems to like, I do meditate, or I should meditate, or it's the word, which is great. Deepak Chopra and Oprah have done a brilliant job as far as making it mainstream. But I still find in meditation, you're still, you know, thinking a lot. It does give you the space, but there's more to it than that. I mean, if I ask my son, because he found his soul himself, and I'm like, oh, I'm curious, could I teach me then? How did you do that? And where do you go when you're having a conversation with your inner self? We all have names for our souls, so that's fine. It makes it easier. And he says, oh, Mummy, it's great. He said, I just zone out, go into this like big white open space. I'm like, I never told you that. I never taught you that. And I'm like, oh.
But it's there. It's there. And the thing is that we have to come to a point where, like your son, we can sense that and we can know that as us.
Yeah.
Right.
And to do that at any point. Do it standing in the queue in the supermarket, or I remember sitting at the table with my children and my ex, and it was all dinner times were just not a good time. Hence, you know, getting into food and all the rest of it. And I was like, I sat there and I went, oh, hang on a second. I'm eating because I don't like the feeling I'm having. Knife and fork down, pull myself away from the table, breathe. There I am. There's my home. There I am. What am I feeling? Is that mine? And my body will get, no. Was it his? No. Is it his? No. It's his. Well, it's not mine then. I don't need to feel it. I don't need to own it. I was like, woof. Okay. So, you know, and then I look at my plate and say, am I still hungry? I haven't been hungry for a while. So
exactly.
It's that breathing that you can just do when it becomes a practice. This is going on from the meditation. The meditation is fine, but to be able to do that with your eyes open. Wherever you are.
Like I don't actually now, I did for a long time, but I don't actually now sit and meditate for like an hour because I don't actually need to any longer.
It takes 10 minutes and you can do it frequently during the day.
I can walk around. Like I'm always saying to my clients, look, meditation does not have to be sitting there being quiet. I mean, it's great if you do that and practice it first, because then you'll get to really see the fight that your ego will do against you sitting in that space. You'll get to notice that. But it can be swimming, it can be walking out in nature, it can be dance, for example. I do a lot of moving meditations because I really believe in getting the body moving. And what you described actually is that the space comes through connecting to the body wisdom. You take yourself out of here and you drop into the space, and suddenly in the body you feel expansive. It's very different, and you can do that walking outside, even in a busy city. You can do that.
I love that, because everything I do is to do with the body. And if you listen to anybody who's talking about the soul or spirituality or anything, it's like, okay, now come into your body. And I remember just going,
What does that mean?
What does that mean? How do I do that? You know, so this is why I'm kind of bringing it back down to real basics. It's like, well, your body's a barometer. Your body is feeling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasons that you've had the kind of family you were brought up in, or a narcissistic relationship, or abuse, or anything like that, I believe that they have been there to serve a purpose, to help you feel sensitive, not just to go through life on autopilot and not feel anything. You're here to be a feeling being. And if you're not able to be a feeling being, I shut my feelings down from a very early age. Wasn't able to deal with feelings, emotions. I've had to train myself. So anybody can do it if I can do it. I've had to train myself. What is that feeling? What does it feel like? Where is it in my body? Is it jagged? Is it moving? Is it warm? Is it soft? And understand the energy. And then at that moment, ask for spiritual help to kind of like, okay, just process that. Let me feel it, be aware of it, and move it out.
Yeah.
And it's almost getting to know all those different levels of vibration, whether it's fear or victim or any of those things that you're blocking out. Is like, oh, well, that's a language. I understand that. I felt that before. Oh, well, that's where that sits. Oh, right, I understand where that. Then you get to know your body, and then, you know, why you have the hip, the neck, the knee, the weight, the whatever. And, or, you know, like I had the obsession with food, because I thought for a while food was going to fix all of that. It was the plaster.
And it's a great numbing tool. It's like,
isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that food itself is the best and most kind of, it's like an epidemic. It's like a silent epidemic of numbing emotions. And that I realized that through the detox stuff. So when I was working as a detox coach, that was my realization. I went through quite a horrible moment in the middle of a juice feast, and suddenly realized actually the emotion that I was feeling, it would peak like any horrible emotion does. You know, it peaks, it wants attention, it wants you to parent that emotion. But basically I would feel that, and then all of a sudden it would kind of taper off, and I would feel that space. And I would be in that space. I was like, okay, I still know that emotion is there, but it's like I was able to, I don't want to say contain it. It was more like it was present with me. Or I was present with it. Maybe that's the better way of saying it. So I wasn't running away from it. I was present with it. And I thought, wow, this is what juicing does. This is what cleaning out the body does. I'm not saying it's always like that. There's been other moments when I've been juicing when the rest of the emotions that have come up haven't been so pleasant. And sometimes there's been nothing at all. Yeah. But I ended up...
Never nothing. There's always something, but it's just...
There's always something.
Some things just... I ask my body, you know, with a client as well, do we need to know the story behind that? No, we don't. Okay, fine. Then just let it pass through. But you're so right. Detox is such a beautiful way. And I love fasting, because food was the bane of my life. So therefore, if I could just shut food off, it would be brilliant. And I don't know whether you ever really felt into the energy of a detox is... I want that out of my life for good. Whereas a diet is just give me a break. A diet.
Diet's not the same.
No, a diet is kind of just for a moment. I just don't want to have to deal with that. Don't want to have to deal with it. So I'm just going to not eat this and not eat that. It's a pause.
I think a diet is about control.
You always go back to the original identity unless you've done the inner work that goes along with it. And a detox is great because my clients used to have these kind of like overwhelming moments, and I'm like, but that's perfect. Oh, it doesn't feel good. Okay, well, we'll just go for a hike then. But the fasting was great because then it just shows you what you're really hungry for or what you're not hungry for.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's really food or whether it's something else, you know, never
really food. But hasn't the industry works? I mean, the diet industry anyway, but hasn't, food industry just fed into that so well, creating all these addictive...
Big money maker.
All these addictive substances and textures and smells and taste stimulators and all those kind of things. And I find food just such a great way of entering into the body and understanding the spice for life or adventure or what your soul values are.
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of moved away from the detox world Not really for that reason. I still really believe that detoxing is a huge thing. I recommend doing it. It's part of it, actually. Yeah, like a kind of like, I know back in the day when I got into raw food and then got into the detoxing stuff, I would never have jet propelled my evolution of my consciousness if I hadn't have done that.
No, me neither. Yeah, exactly.
That would never have happened. So it's still a huge part of what I do.
Yeah.
But I do see that, let's say if we look at the detox world and the food world, as you say, there's not so many people doing what you do, you know, like looking at the stuff beyond that.
Yeah.
And for me, there was that kind of, like people like you were needed, you know, like needed to give that, again, the space again.
But you decipher what you put in, you know, why are you eating that, when you're eating that now. And it's like being really conscious about all those aspects. And like, well, what else is in your environment? Because if you're doing that with that, you're probably doing that to do with your work. You're probably doing that to do with your relationship. Everything becomes a mirror as to what, as to how you're feeding yourself. Like you've got too much on your plate. There's such a ream of great analogies, you know.
Yeah. Well, the diet seems to come from a place of lack, whereas a detox is self-love. Detox can be self-loving.
I think a detox is diving in and being willing to be inquisitive and curious about, you know, okay, just give myself space to sort of like just see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask you as well, like, so how did you know or get in touch with your soul or discover that you were soul? Was it a boom moment, or was it that you were luckily enough to sort of be brought up in a family who were, you know, well educated in emotions? And
no, I would say that no, definitely not. I think if I look at my family were kind of, I sort of describe myself as the sensitive one. I was like the overly emotional, sensitive, crying, feeling everything, feeling everyone's stuff, all of that thing, and had nowhere to go with that because no one around me really understood what that was. I just looked like I was neurotic,
a freak,
you know. Yeah, basically. I mean, I guess I am in a way, but hopefully in a good way now. But that time was like, you know, I was a very, very sensitive, watery child. I have a Scorpio moon. I absolutely associate with your moon sign being very close to it basically is your inner child. So I was all the depth and the, you know, and even like the kind of, often a Scorpio will kind of pull on to the sort of the dark stuff and we'll go and look at it all, you know, it's in there, it's stored away. So I was like that. I grew up in a family, well, my grandparents were religious. So they did kind of try to instill religion, is particularly onto me. I think that's probably because I would go and stay there quite a lot. So I did have this sense of, oh, there's something else.
Yeah.
But as far as I knew at that time, it was God, the way that, you know, there's a man on a fluffy cloud thing, right? That kind of idea. But it kind of sparked something in me that then, because I think I felt so odd and kind of alien-like in my world, it gave me something to connect to.
Yeah.
So when I was in, so when I felt bad or I felt, you know, like I was in trouble or whatever, I would be talking to God, to that thing.
Yeah. So in other words, be creating with a prayer or something like that, or however you have something bigger than you.
Yeah, or walking down the street, coming back from school, talking to the air, you know, doing that thing.
Oh, you too.
And then and then years later I kind of like, not that I really turned away from it, but you know, we grow up and we decide, it seemed sort of childish, you know, so I kind of moved away from that. And anything that I was interested in that was kind of spiritual or woo-woo, I would hide it. So astrology, for example, I didn't show that side of myself. And it wasn't until I had my daughter, and my daughter was like, looked perfect at the beginning, was perfect and beautiful. But when she started eating, she started having huge reactions to food.
Okay.
And this was why I eventually got into raw food, through sheer desperation. I was trying desperately to clear her skin. She was swollen. She was waking up in the night, scratching through her face. It was bleeding. It was horrendous. And I spent 2 years, a very lonely 2 years, really trying to heal her naturally, researching everything. And during that time, I met some raw foodies in Glasgow, of all places, that I never thought would be here, who then started talking to me about, oh, this is just the beginning of your journey. And I was like, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
Right? But they knew because they were further ahead than me.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of when you clean up your diet, you become more connected. There's less fluff going on in the mind.
You radiate out that, and also your inner self is kind of soul intervention, I call it. They bring the people in that they know you need to meet. So in some ways you could sort of say, thank you, daughter, for getting what you got.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
it brought me to a new place. So all the experiences that we have just take us onto another plane. So that's really it wasn't so much a boom moment, but more of
well, it was a boom as in, she's got tons of allergies now, this is a mess. It was more like what I like to call a universal butt kick. Yeah. So my thing is like, there'll be little signs and, reflections of something that you can learn or step into. But if you ignore them, or if you're really far away from that and your soul wants you to wake up, right? Because we still have free will. As a human, you don't have to choose.
You still avoid it.
Still do that. You can still turn away and go, I don't want to do that. I want to go to Hawaii on a holiday. I'm off, But for me, there was that moment where I was like, oh, I'm now having to go through this thing. And I've had lots of them. But that was like one of the big ones. I felt like a really internal call, like that strong internal call to say, you must do it this way. Like, you mustn't go and use medicine. You mustn't listen to the doctor telling you to put 2 steroid creams on her face that only adults are supposed to use and for a really limited time. That wasn't the solution. So I got in my own soul boat. I literally rode it, underneath what felt like the sun coming down and no water and whatever.
I think children are a great way of getting that. I mean, I remember I moved to France after having my first son in Holland, no support, coming here. I was in my 40s. I was just like, don't know how to be a mum. I've never changed a nappy in my life. I called on my totem animal, which is, of course, your soul. And I'm like, I don't know the cries. I don't know when he's hungry. I don't know what he wants. I don't know anything. So I was looking back, I'd kind of forgotten about it because you get into work and life and busyness. And I was like, gosh, I actually used every single tool that I had from the shamanistic side or anything else. Like, what support can I pull on? And my totem animal was with me. And, and I'm like, how did I know that? And even, being in France, not speaking the language, but I spoke the language of the body. I could pick up what people were meaning, even if I didn't speak the words or understand the words. I'm like, but I know what they mean. So all of these things come through so beautifully. And Gail, here's a great question for you that I've just been asked to ask you. Is there any point that you wished you weren't so conscious?
Oh, sometimes, quite often, I'll be quite honest about that. And the reason for that, and I don't want it to sound egoic because it isn't that, it's just that I have not met many people who let's say, where I can have the conversation where I'm going, wow, I'm learning and I'm not the one here being the support. I do have a tendency to be the person who's like the go-to person for other people's support. Like, that is a common theme. And every time I've tried to move out of that, there just seems to be a little loop where I'm still going back. So I kind of look at that like that's still some of the work that I'm doing. Like I said to you, I've started reaching out to other people, like deliberately, not necessarily deleting people from my raw food days, but starting to add people on Facebook or Instagram who I feel are more aligned with my teachings and who are on a level where I can do that thing. For example, the things that happen right now, all that stuff that's happening with politics and coronavirus and everything, having conversations with the people who literally feel like they are sort of being squashed, and they're you know, in the kind of front line with the government.
Yeah.
And then having conversations with people that are slightly removed from that are totally different, right?
Yeah. All in your own little bubble.
Yeah, like you see at the moment, everything's been very divisive, right? I believe it's been orchestrated that way, right? And I'm not the only one that sees that. I do have friends that also see that. So this thing of like, you know, okay, you fall into the camp of what you believe, and anyone who's not in that camp is now your enemy, right? So low vibrationally, you know? Whereas I'm kind of like, I want to pull myself up and look at the universal picture of that. And I want to then look at how does this all pan out and map out. And I'm not saying I don't ever get caught up in something that they've decided to do, right? I'm still human.
Yeah.
But anyway, in answer to your question, I do sometimes see that the pod of people who are really working to sort of change the energy on the planet, we're still all quite split and far apart. There are little groups of us, there are groups in certain places, but even with my clients, one of the biggest things that keeps coming up is about tribe, it's about connection. And as I said to you, and you clearly said to me, this call to start talking to people, I think that's becoming bigger because of that, you know?
Just
so
make
that would be my
everyday stuff. One of the things that, I mean, you talked about your childhood and how you were the one that, you know, took everything in and felt everything, and you weeped it out for other people. I understand that, you know, like being told, oh God, you're so sensitive. Why are you so sensitive? But the way I looked at it, because we grew up in South Africa, so there was apartheid and there was all that kind of stuff and racism. But I remember just being so looking down on something and just getting the bigger picture. And being able to understand it. I mean, so, you know, the nuclear power stations that went off, I can't even remember the name of it now, in Japan or something. I mean, I had a conversation with the planet and said, look, why would you do that? You know, what is that all about? What's that about? So I'll have like a global, everybody's going, oh my God, we need to send help. I'm like, okay, less of that. I want to know why. And the earth turned around to me and kind of said, have you had a spot on your face? Wouldn't you burst it? I was like, are you serious? I mean, my soul is like so, and my, you know, connected to spirit, like, it's comic. It really is kind of really cheeky.
Yeah, always.
It's so cheeky, and just like, yeah, well, get it already. You know, so those kind of things. And then, like, you know, a year later, that whole sea is full of jellyfish. And I'm like, oh, I get it. The jellyfish have the capability to clean up the seas. And I'm like, big picture. And sometimes I find it difficult to sort of bring that all down into like Fiona.
Exactly. Until how does this pertain to my life, my experience, you know? But can I just add to something, because we've touched on that consciousness thing. I don't want people to listen and go, well, why would I bother becoming conscious, you know? Because why would they do that? And it all sounds painful, like it's hard work and whatever. And yes, sometimes it is, but I have to say that I would never want to go back. Like the idea of falling asleep and becoming like that is, I mean, it's like looking at, you know, let's say you were a person in the past who had an addiction, right? And you come out of that, say it was alcohol or drugs or whatever, right? Or even to a person, and you were totally addicted to that person. When you come out of that, you look back and go, oh my God, who was that? I never want to be that ever again. And that's what becoming more conscious and aware of yourself feels like.
But that's becoming aware of the vibration of that particular energy that person or the situation held. So when I'm working with clients, it's the same thing. I said, okay, so what does it feel like now if you, oh, I'm allergic, I could never go back. It's an allergy then. You're just like, oh, no, I could never do that.
It becomes abhorrent. It's like literally like, I can't go there.
No,
you know?
Absolutely. It's just a no, absolutely. But one of the things I'm sure that we haven't just touched on just yet, and I will finish off on this, the point of becoming conscious, without all the seriousness stuff and the shadow stuff and, you know, having to sort of clear out the stuff that you've held on to since childhood or past lives, is that you get to be a creator.
Absolutely.
You get to create the stuff and the way of living that would be most enjoyable for you. I thoroughly believe we are spirit in a human form, and we are here purely to experience everything. And when you dumb down, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to be lost, I don't want to be hurt, I don't want to break love, I don't want to, you don't allow yourself to feel all the gloriousness and all the bliss and the enjoyment and the exuberance and the adventure and the pleasure and the depth of love and the relationship, because you're too frightened of doing that. Fine. You know, I know we've all been there, like, oh, I don't want to go there. I've had ladies saying to me, maybe a year later, I decided I will work with you, but you terrified me in the beginning. I'm like, because they think they're going to die. Their identity.
I get the same thing.
Going to die. But
I make people cry. That's great.
Yeah. But you will have created things the same as I've created things, and I'm writing my stories out about how I created a house with the 5 rooms, the flat garden, in a place that I wanted, for the price that I wanted, cyclable to the sea, with you know, being able to make, I mean, quite a big list of things that I was like, that would be awesome. And being able to create it, just kind of going, and then it didn't come for about a year, and I'm like, I'm missing something. I'm like, yeah, Alex and I, we kind of want to make a house that we can, you know, refurbish. Yeah. Why do I want to do that? I want it painted and decorated perfectly the way it is when I move in. Bang, that weekend we found the house.
I call that a split intention. So where you've got, like, you have an intention, but you have something within it. So like, you have an intention for the house, but you've got this caveat on it. Oh yeah, but it has to do this thing, which then holds you back from your ideal. You know, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, we are here to be creators. So maybe the most people that you speak to as well, who are coming on their journey of their soul, they don't realize, I can have whatever I want. I can create that. Yeah, you're a spiritual being. You can create whatever you want. So, you know, I invite people to play with that, play with being feminine, play with creating a house. I mean, you know, law of attraction talks about parking spaces, checks or whatever, but anything, you know, you want to create a new puppy in your life, you know, have a go at that. Or, I mean, my Alex doesn't like it when I say that. I say, well, I created you. And he goes, no, I existed before you met me. I'm like, no, you didn't. Yeah. You know, so I had, that would be a lovely characteristic to have in a partner. I would really respect that. And DIY and caring and da-da-da-da. But what's the feeling that I want to have?
Absolutely.
Total and utter peace in my body. I don't have to be anyone or anything else. And here he is, you know, 5 years later, still here he is. And I'm like, I've never loved anybody that long before.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, so you get to create. So going back to your, like, so why would you want to be conscious? I think that's
why. Yeah. Yes. Like, again, alignment. Yeah. Like, I know, like, in my own life, there's some things I haven't got right. I can still see that. That's still human. But the other thing that I wanted to add to what you've just said, so there's the being the creator. When you're being that creator and you are actually generating things, you fall in love with yourself more. Like, you trust yourself more. You know, because I'm always saying to people, you're not broken. You just don't trust yourself. And maybe you shouldn't trust yourself in the sense of, if you look at the pattern that you've had in a particular zone, like maybe at work, maybe you're always arguing with your boss or whatever, right? So what you have to do is become more conscious, become aware in that space, see how you're showing up. Then those things start to come into alignment, and that's the place where you can create from. You know, that's how I.
What would you want instead?
What do you mean?
Well, like, you can say, like, well, what would you want instead? Like,
yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know. I mean, could I have that? And then you limit yourself by the amount of imagination you put behind it.
Absolutely.
And I find that fascinating, because it's just immense, you know. And I know that's why you've got beautiful films like Harry Potter, why we've got Avatar, why we've got all these beautiful films that are coming in, and fairyland and unicorns everywhere. I mean, goodness, magic, just to show us as a population and to have belief that anything is possible. But like you said, we are still human, and there are certain things I haven't still worked out, and I'm like, now. Oh, I could change that. I'm the only one creating that, so why would I do that? And it's a daily playground.
Yeah. One of the things we could maybe, like, I'll just add this little bit in, because it was something that was bubbling this morning. Like, sometimes I wake up and I have, like, you know, I laugh because I'm having these conversations. Like, it's like my soul having conversations. That's what I dream about. Exactly. I'm like, oh, can you just leave me alone for a moment?
Gosh.
Let's have this whole conversation about, let's say, the difference between conscious awareness. Like, someone who's consciously aware, and if you think about some of the people that you know, they have a high value of freedom, whereas the ones who are asleep and want to stay asleep have a high value of safety.
Yeah.
You know?
But to have the freedom, you have to know what safety feels like in yourself. No one else, no other thing else can give you the safety. So for me, soul partnering is getting to know that you are soul, feeling safe, and seeing the evidence that soul has done that for you, and seeing the signs. Like, if I see a sign, I'm like, oh, just had a kiss, or just had a hug. Oh, you're there, great. And for me, I have a name, and every lady that I work with has a name for their soul, so that they can identify and then, you know, entwine that in with who you are, and knowing at one point that you're the small one and your soul is the massive one, and allowing yourself to feel safe in that neutral place, linked up to the cosmos and linked down to earth.
Absolutely.
Home in your body, knowing that frequency of peace and safety allows you to love yourself. Once you, for me, that's how I translate it, is like, do you know how much your soul loves you? Would you like to feel that? Would you like to feel how much she adores you? And when they get that feeling, they can lose it and get back to it. And it's like, oh, my mum.
Because it's relief, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a relief. You know, instead of being caught up in the mind that constantly is thinking, oh, I'm not enough, I've not done enough, or I don't like this, or whatever. Again, dropping back into that space. Because to me, your soul connection is down here. It comes through the gut.
Yeah.
You know? And so
that's why we did a lot to do with food.
Well, exactly. Because if you stuff your face, you numb yourself, and you can't feel that stuff, and you can't hear that soul voice. It doesn't.
I laughingly say sometimes, when I'm, you know, beginning on this soul journey and all the rest of it, it's like, come on, speak louder to me, give me more evidence, I want to see you, I want to hear you, and I just get, well, shut up then.
Yes. Be quiet, just be in the space.
And I remember as a little girl, and you probably too, I mean, that's why you were so sensitive, and you know, I'd have experiences, but they were just brushed off, you know, and I didn't have anyone to speak to about those experiences. And I think everyone has some sort of an experience at some point. I mean, what would you say had been your biggest, I don't know, magical moment, out of this world experience that you can share? Something, you know, fantastical or magical, or
as in something I've seen, or something
you've seen, maybe some experience that you've had or felt, but something that you've seen. Or
there was a few things as a child that I saw. I'm definitely much more of a feeler, so I would say, let's say, from the feeling sense, the first time that I ever experienced the heart opening was like, not really, it wasn't overwhelming, it just felt so magical to feel that energy. It was like all flowing across my chest and down my arms, and I felt like at one with the space and the people and all of that. And that happened quite a few times at that point where I really started to wake up, which was during that time of my daughter having all those allergies. You know, but previous to that, maybe like as a child, I did have experiences where there was one episode where actually myself and my sister saw a cross on a wall, this golden cross. She was screaming, she was terrified. This is a little one. My middle sister basically was trying to comfort the little sister, and I could see this cross, and I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. So I'm shaking the curtain, and I think maybe it's lights from the street, and I'm touching the wall because I'm like, is it hot? Like, you know, and as I was there trying to touch it, I could see this thing moving up. It was going up across the ceiling, you know, and at that point, you know, I'm not scared of it. However, at that point, my mom comes in, tells me to go to bed, and we don't talk about it for years later. Yeah. Like, no one mentions this. I just have this as a funny thing in my head, you know. So one day, I don't know why the conversation comes up, but, you know, my middle sister is sitting there, and I say, oh, you know, do you remember that there was a time when, you know, my little sister saw this cross and she was crying and I could see it, and she went, what cross? I didn't see anything. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. She didn't see anything. Then my younger sister comes in, and I mentioned this, and she said, oh, are you talking about the crosses I used to see? I was like, what? It was plural, right? So I just thought it was so interesting. It was like, you know, two of us obviously were connected to something, and two others weren't, you know? And it's funny. I wonder how many people have had an experience like that where they're actually
never talk about it.
No, you know. And so
and I think it's interesting that you can see it and somebody can't. I had a girlfriend who I talk about this kind of stuff. She came to stay with me just before lockdown.
Yeah.
And so we were driving along, and I said, oh, great, an 888. I love seeing number plates. And I said, this must be the corner of the world with like so many triple numbers. It's like, oh, 777, 444, 333, 222. And she says, oh, I never saw that. She said, I saw 222. So really? She saw, And we were laughing, saying
that's so funny.
She would only see those numbers and I would only see those numbers, because that, for me, it means something. For her, you know, she needed to see something else.
Yeah.
But seeing, you know, visions and things like that nobody talks about. I remember telling my family once about a vision that I'd seen. And I don't even remember what the reaction was. It was just like, yeah, anyway. And I'd had this, I don't know what they're called, those sort of, you know, Egyptian men with an Egyptian dog head. You know, I could hear it coming up the stairs in my house. I'm thinking, I've got a big Weimaraner, but that's really much too heavy for his footsteps. I'm like, okay. I am awake, I'm conscious, but I'm like, just, you know, a bit of a dreamy state.
Yeah.
And then it comes around and like, oh shit, it's in the bedroom. It's coming around the side of the bed. It's right next to me. I can feel it right next to me. It's massive, this thing. And I'm going, okay, right, I'm going to look now. And I looked and I was like, yep, it's there. Okay, close my eyes. Like, get ready. And then I looked at it, it's gone. I was like, I wanted to ask you some questions.
It's like your inner child came out and went, oh, I missed it.
I missed the party. But yeah, so I think so many people do have experiences that absolutely shows that we are not just flesh and bones on this physical plane.
No. And I don't know whether you've ever done any plant medicines. Have you done any plant medicine?
In what respect? I mean, I work with plants all the time, but
so like I've never done ayahuasca, but I have done iboga. Yeah. And what was interesting for me during that session, and that's the first session I ever did, was it just for a lot of people, they were releasing trauma at the beginning, releasing things that they had. I didn't really have that so much. It was more like a kind of reconnecting to parts of myself that were kind of lost, you know. And that, I'm not saying people go and chase plant medicine. I'm not saying that, because I actually believe it's only a gateway. It's not the answer.
And it really depends on the person who's leading you through it. I know somebody who was left up there.
Yeah.
Has never really since returned and been able to function properly on the planet.
Yeah. But let's say the plus side of it is the fact that if you're a person who really does question the other world, and you only think that this is the only thing that exists, it would absolutely open you up to the fact that it's not the only thing that exists, because everything becomes so much more clear. But it's not the answer for everything. Like for me, it was a moment, and it helped me to actually just see that, that connection's already there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, when you said plant medicine, I just thought you meant me talking to plants. I said, how does she know I talk to my plants?
That's a medicine as well for the plant.
Well, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, they show me so much, and every lady that I work with has a plant or a rose or something in my garden, whatever the energy kind of goes with. And sometimes they're in a pot to develop, and then at some point they get put in the earth. Gail, I've absolutely adored talking to you and knowing that we're not alone in our magical weirdness, witchy sorcerousness, and the fact that this is just so totally normal that we're able to sort of cross over the boundaries and say, what would I like to eat today? Where would I like to go today?
Yeah.
Should I go to the park? No, I don't want to. It doesn't feel good. But I did the same when I invited some people to come and work with me, and I was a single mum at the time, and I was like, well, maybe I can just feel into his energy and see whether I feel safe or not. I felt into, you can do this. This is why consciousness is so great. You can, you know, do telepathy, and you can move over space and time and just feel into the energy of someone. Say, are they okay? Is my dad in South Africa? Is he okay? Yeah. Is my mum okay? You know, you can know that, and it's not weird. It's so doable and possible. And to, you know, you'll do the same thing. It's like helping people through their understanding of their parents' relationships with them, or confrontation with somebody. It's just like, I thought I was here to do food. Well, can you see what you're holding and carrying around with you if we don't sort out this relationship with your mother or your father or your brother? And, you know, you get to grow up and you get to be the grown-up.
You need to become the parent for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely a big part of my work, is people understanding that your inner child is not really looking for mom and dad any longer. It's looking for you to parent it. It's your job and it's your responsibility, and it isn't anyone else's. And for some people that's difficult, but that's necessary.
It's so freeing.
Yeah. So then you're not constantly looking for someone else to give you something you're supposed to be giving yourself.
Yeah, it's like, oh, please love me. Please love me. I'll be good. I'll be a good girl.
I'll be a good girl. Yeah.
I'll be a good girl. I remember clearing that up on myself and a few people as well. It's like, why? Why would I want to prove myself? But we do. Gail, this has been absolutely phenomenal, and I would love to have you back at some point, because I just think it will just keep evolving, and I just want to make sure that these are the most ordinary, everyday conversations that we as humans, population, beautiful souls, can have.
Yeah, extraordinary conversations.
Extraordinary, and again, totally and utterly ordinary. If you listen to Gangadine, people like that, it's like, well, just take yourself out of the picture. It's just not important. It's like, you're not important. You think you matter so much, and then at some point you kind of go, really?
Yeah.
Really? That's me?
Yeah, so true. So true. Thank you, my love.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful. Good luck with all your programs and everything, and we will put your bio and everything below on the YouTube video that we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, lovely.
Okay. Bye-bye.